Hello, and welcome to today's special webinar event on Tame Your Unstructured Data. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, there are a few things that you should know about this webinar. First off, we want this to be an interactive event for you and informative, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. There's a link for getting started with Rubrik. There are also links to the Gorilla Guide Book Club and the ATM Event Center. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we'll be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event. Of course, you must be in attendance during the event to qualify for the prize. We recognize that some of you work for organizations that don't allow you to accept prizes. If that's the case for you, or if you want to donate the value of the gift card, we work with several great charitable organizations, and we can help you direct the value of the gift card to one of those. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. And finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. To help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. At the end of the event, we'll look at all the questions, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. And with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. It's my pleasure to introduce you to those expert speakers for today. We have Christina Avrianova, Principal Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik, and Tony Zhao, Senior Product Manager at Rubrik. So it's great to have you both here today. Christina, I'm going to turn it over to you to take it away.
And I'm on the product marketing team. Our agenda today is short and sweet. We will cover the problem with the ever-growing volumes of data. We will then introduce NAS Cloud Direct, a powerful and easy-to-use data protection that delivers scalable backup and archive services for unstructured file and object data. We will follow with a live demo, and we will then recap. Well, this graph should be a surprise to no one. It is hard to find an organization that is not following these trends. And we know that the growth will continue, and you will continue to amass billions to trillions of files comprising of petabytes to exabytes of data. Unstructured data is growing 62% per year faster than structured data, and analysts predict that by 2025, it will be 80% of total data. So how do you manage this today, and how will you manage it in the future? Let me ask you, how many copies of your NAS data do you have now? And how do you manage that? It's painful and inefficient, isn't it? Because snapping and replicating to a second physical NAS cluster results in more data management headaches and larger on-prem footprint, right? And if you archive to tape, you have no visibility into your data and it's difficult to recover that, right? And you cannot because nobody is going to see you, but do you really back up all your NAS data? When it comes to protecting unstructured data, we hear from our customers that they have several NAS vendors and multiple copies to manage, so things are getting quite complex. Backups are very slow. It can take hours and you can back up only during the backup windows, so otherwise you're not impacting the users and application that need to access the data. To keep with the data growth, you keep on adding hardware, which just makes things more complex. The problem just gets bigger. And lastly, this complex environment does not work well or leverages the cloud much, if at all. As you can imagine, at Rubrik, we have a better way. NAS Cloud Direct is a modern backup and archive NAS solution that is designed for simplicity at scale. First, it is a SaaS solution. It is deployed as a virtual machine, so there is no hardware to manage. NAS Cloud Direct provides integration with any NAS storage and native support for all file access protocols. Moreover, we include API integration with Isilon, NetApp Fast, FlashBlade, and Cumulo, so you can just plug and play. Archive is direct to any cloud target, be it AWS, Azure, GCP, so no more vendor lock-ins, and you can archive directly to the economical storage tiers. Or if you choose, you can archive to a private cloud, or mix and match as you need. And lastly, you get to enjoy as-a-service monitoring and management. Our remote management platform handles all the monitoring, diagnostics, failure management, and software updates, so we can take care of the logistics and you can take care of your business. With NAS Cloud Direct, you get the simplicity, scalability, and the high performance at a petabyte scale. Simplify and automate protection with SLA-driven policy engine, no more manual job scheduling, no more multiple copies of your NAS data, no more management inefficiencies. The global visibility with powerful search and analysis will allow you to discover and index billions of file system objects and object changes per day. Identify the code data, search for files, for folders, users, or groups, and take the action that you need, be it archive, protect, migrate, or retire. Rapid data mobility will give you the so much needed storage freedom. Want to archive a set of files to Amazon Deep Glacier and another one to Azure Archive? You know you can do that. We already talked about it. Lastly, you get to enjoy fast and no friction data recovery process. You need to find that copy of a file that had to be delivered yesterday? No problem. Quickly search with granularity down to the file level and restore to any NAS, server, or PC so long as it was via the same protocol as it was backed up. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tony so he can take you into a deeper dive on how the product works.
Thanks, Christina. So how does it all work? How is Cloud Direct capable of supporting NFS or SMB on whichever NAS platform you choose to move data to any cloud, whether it's private or public, warm tier or archive tier? This slide may look a bit familiar since Rubrik's NAS Direct Archive also has 3 phases: scan, fetch, and copy. But Cloud Direct works completely differently. While NAS Direct Archive has distinct phases where files are first scanned, then completely fetched, and as a batch copied to the storage destination, Cloud Direct pipelines all operations. So a file that has been scanned will be moved and indexed one after another without waiting for other files to complete a scan, move, or index step. It's all one big process. We're going to explore each Cloud Direct step in more detail, but I did want to highlight some of the proof points for Cloud Direct's capabilities. The scan operation is fast enough to completely walk the file tree of 11 billion files in under 10 hours. In a real customer scenario. And this is using the native Cloud Direct NFS and SMB clients rather than any specialized change detection API. Cloud Direct was also used to move 3.5 petabytes of data to cloud storage in under 3 weeks at another customer installation. And finally, the indexing capability of Cloud Direct can maintain 100 billion object index, allowing users to quickly search and recover individual files, even while new files and directories are being indexed. Cloud Direct uses its own custom-built clients called NFS Lite and SMB Lite. It connects directly to the NAS system and does not rely on any of the underlying OS to mount the shares. Highly parallel, highly multi-threaded, it can detect which threads finish faster and rebalance work to keep all threads running. Well, one concern you may have is, how does this affect my NAS? Is it going to overload it and cause performance degradation for other users and applications? You won't have to worry about this, since Cloud Direct is also smart enough to throttle back its own performance when it detects this situation. How does it detect this? While it is scanning the system, it is also monitoring the latency of the operations. When it detects a latency exceeding a dynamically set threshold, it will scale back the number of threads scanning the system to reduce the load on the NAS. And when it detects the latency dropping back to an acceptable level, it will automatically start increasing the threads to improve performance without exceeding the thresholds. No manual tuning required, no calls to support to dial it in. This all happens automatically under the hood. All these capabilities combined means Cloud Direct has one of the highest performing NAS clients with the capability to easily scan billions of files and directories without being bottlenecked by one component. In fact, most commonly in real-life deployments of Cloud Direct, the bottleneck actually becomes how fast the source NAS system itself can safely serve out data to Cloud Direct. As soon as files are scanned, Cloud Direct is going to start moving them, even as other files are still being scanned. It's still using the NFS Lite and SMB Lite clients to read data, so the same multi-threaded approach is used to automatically scale the performance. But during move operations, Cloud Direct can actually leverage the snapshot APIs built specifically for NAS hosts, such as NetApp, Isilon, Pure Storage, and Cumulo. For these systems, it will initiate a snapshot call to create a point-in-time consistent view of the files. So when Cloud Direct now reads the files from the snapshot, it is not affected by file locks or inconsistent file states. It will read a copy of the files exactly as they are at the point in time the backup was taken. The move process is also built with cloud storage in mind. While individual put costs are fractions of a cent, it does not scale well if each individual file requires a put. In that scenario, moving billions of files individually becomes a costly operation. Instead, individual files are combined into 64 meg chunks, and each chunk is written out to the cloud as a single put operation. Rinse and repeat for the remaining files to be moved. This is a smarter way of moving file data to the cloud, and Cloud Direct's move operation is built with this in mind. So this is great. We're scanning all the files, we're in the process of moving them into the cloud, but we still have billions of files and directories. We still need a way to search and find the files out of the billions we've moved. This is where the index of Cloud Direct comes into play. It indexes every file and stores the metadata in a manner to allow a user to quickly and efficiently locate any single or set of files. Even more, it doesn't require an absurd amount of compute or memory to brute force a search. Cloud Direct actually just uses a VM with modest requirements. 64 gigs of memory, 100 gigs of storage, to perform not just the indexing, but the scan and move steps as well. Even though the VM performs these operations, the index itself is decoupled and stored in a cloud instance controlled by Rubrik. The customer does not need to provision additional storage for this index in the cloud. It's just built into the product and completely managed by Rubrik, just part of the subscription cost of Cloud Direct. This cloud index is built for large scale, high object count, and high performance, just like every other component of Cloud Direct. It supports fast insertion of newly indexed data while retaining the ability to instantly query the index. It can do multi-dimensional queries and return variable results. Now you're wondering, give it to me in English. How does this even benefit me as a user? Well, this index means you can search for specific file names while specifying the size of the file you're searching for, and then filter it by attributes such as file ownership, all at once. And it's all happening while Cloud Direct is actively indexing new files using nothing but a VM. So now we've explored how data protection works with Cloud Direct. We've looked at how NAS data is scanned, moved, and indexed from your source NAS to destinations of your choice. You've seen how all of this is performed at high speed with minimal impact. But that's not all. There's a nifty additional capability in Cloud Direct called Data Discover. What it does is every week on Saturday, we'll take the scan engine of Cloud Direct and scan all the NAS systems added to it. This can be used even if the data is not being protected by Data Discover. What it generates is a report that categorizes the data by last modified time and access age. Now, how's this useful? Well, if you have petabytes of data, you're probably interested in how much of it hasn't been used recently and how much can be moved off to less expensive locations. You want to free up your primary NAS storage for mission-critical data and move the cold data to an archival storage tier. Problem is, with petabytes of data and billions of files, you probably have no idea where or even what those files are. This is where Data Discover's report comes in handy. It gives you a quick way to visualize the data on all of your NAS systems and dig in to find which systems, shares, or directories contain the cold data that's no longer necessary. Better yet, once you found the files in Data Discover, you can actually tell the tool to create an archival copy of the data and move it to deep archival storage directly. Now, this is not stubbing or symlinking. Data Discover doesn't delete or alter the data when it creates an archival copy. It leaves you in control of what to do with the original data after an archival copy has been created and moved. All in all, Data Discover is a nifty tool for a common problem. You want to find cold data in the vast amounts of NAS you have and move it elsewhere. Data Discover is going to help you find it using our scan engine and create an archival copy using our move engine. So up until now, we've covered in depth how Cloud Direct protects your data, how Data Discover can visualize file usage, but what good is a backup if the recovery process isn't simple and fast to use? The great news is that Cloud Direct offers the same easy-to-use recovery as other Rubrik products. Since the metadata has all been indexed and stored separately from the data, you can search and recover individual files regardless of where the file is actually stored. You can do searches, you can browse the data protected, you can find files based on attributes and select just the files you need rather than recovering the entire backup image. The files and directories can also be recovered to any like destination, NFS data to NFS exports, SMB data to SMB shares. This means there's no vendor lock-in when restoring data, which is ideal for heterogeneous environments where multiple different NAS systems are used. The data can be protected off one NAS and restored to any other NAS system. To cap it all off, here's a high-level overview of Cloud Direct's architecture. On the left are the sources of NAS data: Isilon, NetApp, Pure, Cumulo, or even generic NFS or SMB. These can all be mixed and added to Cloud Direct to be protected. With the vendor specifically listed, Cloud Direct can go further and use APIs for additional capabilities like triggering point-in-time snapshots. At the center is really the only Rubrik presence required on-prem, the VM. This VM uses custom NFS and SMB clients to connect to the NAS sources, scan, move, and index the data. There's no other hardware needed, not even a brick required. The VM itself is even directly scalable. If you have large enough NAS data sets and want to move data faster, you can provision additional VMs to scale up appropriately. Remember, our aim is to remove the bottleneck from Cloud Direct components and allow you to scan, move, and index data as fast as your NAS or network can handle. On the right, you'll see that the scan metadata lives in an index in the cloud, managed by Rubrik. The updates and telemetry goes to Rubrik's Polaris Cloud control plane in the center, giving a view of all Cloud Direct data, as well as any other Rubrik managed data. From here, you'll control which NAS sources are added, what data is protected, where the data protection copies flow, and when it becomes necessary, which data to recover and where. And finally, on the bottom is where all of your data goes, either to a public cloud such as AWS, Azure, or GCP, or even to a private cloud built on object storage you manage directly. You have the freedom to choose what storage to use, and you can easily split data out to different tiers according to your business needs. With that, I'd like to introduce Daniel Chi, a staff pre- and post-sales engineer here at Rubrik, who will be leading us through the demo of NAS Cloud Direct. Daniel is immensely helpful, and if you actually end up using Cloud Direct, you'll probably be working with them in the future as well. With that, take it away, Dan.
Hello, today I am here to perform a demo of Rubrik NAS Cloud Direct. I will be covering importing systems into Cloud Direct, creation of policies for both backup and archive purposes, as well as a high-level demo of Data Discover, which is our data insight product that will allow you to see when files were last modified or last accessed and bucketized into specific buckets for you to curate at a later time. This is our high-level dashboard view. It provides a point-in-time view of what is happening on your Rubrik NAS Cloud Direct platform. To the top here, we have current throughput, which basically gives us a view into how much data is being transferred in and out of the network between your NAS platform and your backup target. We see 0 here because there's nothing running on this demo system. And on this side here, I can show that we have 1.08 billion objects or files on this platform. The average file size is about 100 kilobytes. And then we have the data insight that gives you a little bit more detail on what the change rate is on your NAS platform. These are data for all the shares and exports that are currently being backed up, both in terms of changed data or modified files, and also new data, meaning data that has just been newly introduced onto your NAS platform, as well as some of the data that may have been deleted. Data growth gives you a very quick view of how quickly your primary NAS device is adding data, as well as how much data is being pushed to the cloud. Now let's talk a little bit about the systems page. This page here is where the magic really happens. All your NAS devices that have been introduced to Cloud Direct will be displayed here, and will be showing you all the NFS or SMB exports on that particular filer, such as this and this, should they exist on the filer. Now, how do we get all the systems introduced to Cloud Direct? Well, we can click on the Add Systems here, and you will be able to select a set of system types. You will notice that some of them are branded, for example, the Dell EMC Isilon platform here. What they mean is these are platforms that we have native API integration, which allows us to control the creation and deletion of snapshot, which allows us to perform an accurate point-in-time backup of your file system. It also allows us to manage permissions of your shares and exports. That way, as you perform backup of any shares or export, Cloud Direct automatically modify the shares or exports to allow us to back it up effectively without needing you to go to your NAS system and manually adding permissions for us to do so. There are two special systems here called generic NFS and generic SMB. What it means is for generic NFS, we will be able to back up a live NFS file system of any platform, for example, Linux, Unix, or a NFS gateway of sorts for you to read from. Generic SMB is really geared towards devices that provide SMB services, but is not one of the four named platforms like Isilon, NetApp, Cumulo, or Pure. The primary supported platform for generic SMB is Windows servers, Dell Unity platforms, as well as Synology NAS. So let's try and add a Dell EMC system here. We would type in the host name and a root user for admin access for the time being. We do not store this root user or password anywhere in the system. It is only used on this page. It is used temporarily. Once I hit continue, we will create a custom local user on the NAS device and leverage the necessary RBAC roles for that user to perform the necessary commands on the NAS device, such as creation and deletion of snapshot. So let's hit continue, and it's going to discover the platform. And at this point, the root password has been forgotten. We do not keep that around. And let's click on complete adding the system. It found 56 exports. So once the system has been imported, it will show up here. For example, the Isilon 42 system we've just recently imported. And when you click it, you will see all the shares that are available here, right? How do I back up any of these shares, you may ask? Well, if you click on the shares, this little fly in on the right-hand side will allow you to configure the backup of that particular share. The protection system here will allow you to pick a policy. Today I have picked the backup to S3 on the US East 2 standard policy. What it does is literally copies the data to AWS in the standard hot tier, right? Details will show any successful backups that have happened in the past. And if you so choose, you can delete the backup from here. Actions are just a list of actions that you can perform on a particular share once you have a policy defined for it. Backup directory means that you can define a specific directory within the export for backup. Backup exclusion is just the opposite of that, where you exclude a particular subdirectory for backup. And then run policy is essentially to run the execution of the backup immediately, right? So where do all these policies show up? I will cover it in our policies view. The policy page is where we create archive or backup policies. When you select creation of policies for backup, for example, you would be able to define a name for it and the backup frequency, right? By default, it's really daily, twice a day, weekly, or bi-monthly, and on a monthly basis. Or you can select never, which essentially means that you want to back up on a manual basis, right? And as far as the targets go, we support the standard 3 large cloud providers, Azure, Amazon, and Google, as well as any other S3 compatible cloud storage. Other S3 can also be used with Wasabi, Oracle Cloud, for example, or on-prem solutions like Cloudian or NetApp Storage Grid. We can also write to an NFS data store, such as a Isilon or Cumulo or even a NetApp Fast series. Let's select a Amazon system. Well, the cloud for this account is Igneous Demo, and we can select a bucket. If you select an existing bucket, we will simply reuse it, and you will be able to select a tier. We do integrate directly with the Glacier Deep Archive tier. One cool thing about Cloud Direct is that we try to optimize everything for economics purposes. So on the cloud systems, if you were to define a bucket and select a region, say US East, and use a bucket that already exists, well, what we will do is check the location of that bucket. For example, Igneous Demo actually lives in the US West 2 bucket, region, sorry. What it means is if you were to write to US East, Amazon will allow you to do so, and in the background, transfer that object from US East to US West 2. That is transparent to end user. It just happens in the background. However, there is a cost associated with it. Right. So to avoid that, we will actually notify you of which region it is in. So we will select Oregon, which is actually US West 2, and it says, hey, the bucket exists there and will be reused. So you can use the bucket. Now, we do integrate with Glacier Deep Archive, as I mentioned, and the key difference between our platform and traditional platforms is that when we move a particular file into Deep Archive, we tag it to go to Deep Archive right off the bat. So while we do land in standard temporarily, there is no charge to move that object from standard to Deep Archive later. Traditional system will land on standard tiers and then leverage the Amazon Lifecycle Management systems to move the object from standard down to one of the archive tiers. What that means is instead of a single put directly into Deep Archive, you're doing a put request into standard, a get request out of standard, and then a re-put into an archive tier. Now, additionally, if the lifecycle management move does not complete in a 24-hour window, whatever you've put into the standard tier will be charged at the standard tier rate instead of only the Deep Archive rate. We can also allow you to define when to delete all the data or retention policies in this case, typically 30 days. And for some customers who need to be able to write to different cloud providers or have different retention policies, you can also do something like this, where you can put standard here, and then you add an extra target and say, I am going to send this to a different AWS bucket, and we call it archive demo. This we'll call it into Deep Archive and say forever. What happens is whenever this policy executes, we'll copy one copy of your data to the standard tier in Amazon and keep only for 30 days. And another copy to Amazon, this particular bucket, and keep it in the archive tier forever so that you have a longer term backup. Most people typically would convert this into writing to a local store or a different cloud provider, provided you have that business need. Archive policy, on the other hand, is slightly different. You would be able to define the same bucket, credential, as well as tier. However, you notice there is no frequency. You cannot schedule archive, right? There is no recurrence on archive. Think of archive policy more as a template for you to apply to any share or export that you want to archive in the future. That we have policies created, how do we assign the policies to either NFS export or SMB share? Well, we click on systems, pick one of the exports over here, for example, this particular one, and then you can apply all the protection here. Next, I would like to talk about Data Discover. This is our data insights product that will be able to give you a view across your entire NAS real estate. What it does is allow you to create buckets of age either last access or last modified, so you can have a high-level view of how old your data is. So on a weekly basis, we will be able to scan all your NFS exports or SMB shares across all the NAS devices that has been introduced to NAS Cloud Direct. Once you have performed the scan, you will be able to come to this view here and see where all the data live and also the age associated with each of the data. So for example, let's click on last modified here and say I want to find all data that was last modified more than 3 years ago. You notice that the bars have been highlighted and is slightly thicker than the rest of them. This is to help potential colorblind customers to be able to identify the differences between the selected ones and the unselected data sets. So in this case here, 2.1 petabytes of 3.6 petabyte in this particular NetApp system is older than 3 years, right? But you can drill down further into it to determine which particular shares or export within the system has most of the old data. Like this here, for example, project 3, 100% of the data is last modified more than 3 years ago. So you can reach out to your end user and say, hey, this particular data set is old. It's got about 243.9 terabytes. Can I archive it so that I can reclaim some of the capacity? Well, once you get approval, you can click on archive and apply a archive policy here to send directly to the cloud. It's that simple. Once you've archived the data, you will receive an email saying that the archive task is completed, and you will be able to go and verify that all the data has been archived and then proceed to deleting the data off your primary NAS device.
All in all, Cloud Direct really opens the door for protecting and managing your NAS systems. The legacy products struggle with performance and ease of management at the petabyte scale of modern NAS environments. The frustration and difficulty in using these legacy products means a significant amount of NAS environments are underprotected or even completely unprotected. Cloud Direct really helps simplify setting up protection. It's subscription-based and only requires a VM to be set up rather than dealing with managing new hardware. It will back up any NAS and recover to any NAS, meaning you get to minimize your NAS storage costs and can prioritize it for mission-critical data. Setting up protection is simple and fast, with Cloud Direct automatically discovering your data and requiring the user just to choose what and where the data should be sent. No need to figure out backup schedules. Our SLA-based approach will match the scheduling to your business requirements. And since Cloud Direct is built for moving data to cloud tiers, it is designed to intelligently leverage cost-effective archives in the cloud. It's smart in how it moves data to the cloud, how it uses index in the cloud, and how it stores and deletes data from the cloud, based on the storage tier you're using. Finally, all these capabilities combined means mitigating risk to your business. Cloud Direct manages immutable data protection copies to protect you and your business from threats like ransomware or data loss. So even if something strikes, you can quickly and easily recover the data necessary from Cloud Direct copies to keep your business going. And with that, thank you for listening to our presentation.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Great walkthrough. Nice demo from Dan as well. So Tony and Christina, are you guys ready for some audience questions?
Sounds good. Take it away.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. First question here comes from Ted. He's wondering what protection against ransomware is available in the platform.
Yeah, so first and foremost, the ability to have a standalone separate copy is already one layer of protection against ransomware. So what we usually tell customers is that the VM that Cloud Direct uses is a separate thing, and it's also stateless, as I think I mentioned in the presentation. So let's say your ransomware takes over, it even encrypts or locks up the VM. Well, your third copy could be sitting out in Glacier or Azure Archive. Ransomware is not going to touch that unless it's really bad, right? So in that case, since the VM is stateless, you have a separate copy of data sitting offsite. You can just actually redeploy that same image, that same VM image, and it would actually reconnect to all the things that you, to the archives, to your existing NAS, to the cloud infrastructure that we have. and resume operations. And you can just start restoring from your offsite copy. So that's already one layer of ransomware protection. And then, of course, Rubrik also has products such as Radar and Sonar and other security products. And those we are actually actively looking to integrating into this platform as well, into this product as well. So in the future, not only would you be able to have a safe copy, but you could also detect when ransomware has struck through just routine operations. We'd actually be able to see the changes in the data that we are protecting and scanning, and we'd be able to notify you. And there's even threat hunting capabilities, so we can find out the last known good copy. So those are all exciting changes that are coming soon in the product, but already just the product itself today already offers you one layer of protection.
Okay, great. Hey, and there was a follow-up to that question, which is, what are some of the data compliancy features of the platform?
So today there's already reporting. Data compliance is a bit of a broad question, so I'm not sure what aspect you're looking at this from, but there's already reporting capabilities into determining how much data is being protected, which data is backed up. As you saw during the demo, you can easily figure out which shares, which hosts, NAS hosts are already protected. You can definitely create a report from that alone to demonstrate to your CIO or to whoever's managing data compliance that this data is protected.
Okay, super. Next question comes from Bradford. Is there a self-service portal to restore, NAS data files by a user?
So we actually have some customers. It depends on how open you are with your customers. We do have some customers that have expanded, given some users the ability to look into the dashboard that you saw, the product dashboard that your control dashboard that you saw, and from there they can technically restore and choose what to back up. But then we have other customers who are using this product today, and they choose to have the dedicated personnel to manage both backup and recovery. So right now the dashboard is what we have. It's definitely something we can explore in the future as well, to expand this to either something API driven or to just create additional roles so that you can delegate limited access capabilities in the future to individual end users so that they can restore the data they need without affecting backups.
Okay, great. Next question comes from Ned. He's wondering how does Rubrik's zero trust data protection and sensitive data discovery, how do those features work together to process and protect organizational information within the cloud environments?
Yeah, thanks. So this actually goes into a bit for the integration with Radar, Sonar, and our other our ransomware protection products, right? So sensitive data discovery would be the Sonar product, which actually is able to dig into the data itself and find personal identifiable information, or to determine whether you're HIPAA compliant or whether you have like something like a social security number that's just sitting out in a plain text file. And then zero trust data protection is actually the full suite of products that includes Radar, Sonar, the threat hunting capabilities that we'll be introducing as well. So as I said earlier, those are definitely things we're actively integrating into the product itself. Currently, Radar, Sonar works on all the other Rubrik products. Since this started off as a separate and standalone product that has no dependency on the core Rubrik products right now, we have to build the integrations in for it to start scanning and surfacing this information to the dashboard that you may already know and use.
Okay, great. There was another question here about how you get the agent installed on NAS devices, but I think Dan went through that after that question came through and really, showed that really well in the demo. So hopefully that answered that question. Jay is wondering how the licensing worked. Is it a subscription-based service or a one-time payment?
Yeah, so the licensing is subscription. We do offer flexible packages, right? So you can do I know you can do annual pay, or you can do pay over time. It's license based on the front end capacity, and I think that's one thing that we're very that sets us apart at the very least. So if you're backing up, say, let's say 5 petabytes of data, right? And you are creating, let's say, 20 copies. Instead of charging you for 100 petabytes of backend storage that you're consuming, we only charge you based on the 5 petabytes that you are protecting today or at any given time, right? So you can change data within that 5 petabytes over time. But as you look at the subscription, we only charge and we only license based on the front end terabytes, which is a 5 petabytes, rather than your backend storage for all those backups may scale up over time, but at the end of the day, you're still paying the same subscription based on the front end terabytes that you're using over time.
Okay, super. Next question: Do you archive data just to the cloud, or does it also are there other potential targets?
Yes, so we really want to offer our customers and our users the flexibility to choose wherever they want to go, right? So whether it's a cloud or on premises, you can use Cloud Direct to archive to either one of these. So of course, you can always use this to archive to something to one of the archive tiers in the cloud on AWS, Azure, GCP, what have you. Or if you prefer to keep the archive data on premises on either object storage or even just a plain old NFS share, you can do that as well. So just because the name is Cloud Direct, it speaks to its capabilities in integrating and the availability that offers with the cloud infrastructure behind it. It does not mean that we limit you to only archiving to one of the cloud providers. You can definitely use this to keep the data on premises in your own object storage that you may already have, or just reuse some NFS storage that you already have as well.
Okay, super. And I'll throw in a question of my own here, which is, I always like to ask, what are your best customers doing, that's interesting with the tool, to really get the most out of it, maybe with data discovery, or, what are some of the best practices that you're seeing from some of your most sophisticated customers?
Yeah, so that's actually I have several interesting examples. So one, we have quite a few media entertainment customers, and what they actually do is in their workflow, they create a project that goes through all the phases of the media processing, right? The media creation workflow. And at the end of the day, what they do is they say this project is done. Like, for example, this movie may be released or this show is done. Uh, but they usually keep that without data discovered. They actually keep that on the on-premises NAS, because maybe they need to take one of those assets from one of the previous shows and put that in another show that they're doing or another movie that they're creating. So what ends up happening is that their primary storage ends up ballooning a lot of the time, because all these projects, all these just stay on the primary storage, and they have no idea what's actively being used. And this is one thing where data discovery really comes in handy, is you can actually look, like, if this project has not been accessed for 6 months, right, or for 1 year, or even 2 years, right, you can probably safely archive that off to somewhere off-prem, say, or to object storage, and to free up that space on your primary for additional projects that you may be undertaking. So that's one thing that some of our media entertainment customers are doing, is that they're finding all this storage that is not actively being used. They're creating a copy off-prem or on object storage, and they're basically freed up additional storage for them to use for additional projects they want to undertake. That's one of the most interesting use cases I've seen for data discover. For backups and protection, we see all sorts of, we see customers creating multiple copies of data. So for example, that same copy of data could flow off to something like Azure Archives, right? And then they also create an on-prem copy at the same time that stays on their local NFS storage, just in case they need to restore something on a quicker basis. So all sorts of very workflow specific applications that I've seen, but Data Discover definitely has some of the most interesting use cases.
Thanks. Yeah, those are great. Really interesting use cases there. Next question is about NAS Cloud Direct. They're asking which storage vendors does NAS Cloud Direct support?
So we definitely support the major ones. That's NetApp, Isilon. It supports Pure. It supports and I believe NetApp 7 mode as well. But the great thing is that technically any NAS is supported because as you saw earlier in the demo, we can have a generic NFS or generic SMB. So for some of our demo environments, we've literally just created a Windows server, opened up SMB share on it, and connected directly to the NAS Cloud Direct to act as kind of the demo source NAS, right? So technically you can use, as long as it has NFS or SMB, you can use it, but we do have richer integrations with the larger NAS vendors such as NetApp, Isilon, Pure.
All right, super. Well, I think that's about it for our questions. I guess if somebody wants to get started with Rubrik on this or find out more, what do you recommend?
I definitely, of course, there's always a handouts that we have quite a few handouts just on this webinar to take a look on how do you get started with Rubrik, as well as our kind of a guidebook on the challenges of NAS, how to protect it, and how you can the best practices for doing so. But if you're really interested in doing so, in getting a demo of this product or learning more or have some more technical questions that you want to follow up on, definitely reach out to either Christina or myself. I believe we have the contact information here, or reach out to your friendly local Rubrik representative as well. I'm sure that they'll be able to walk you through give you a deeper in-depth dive of the product and perhaps even demo.
All right, super. Well, thanks a lot, Tony, and thanks, Christina. Really appreciate the presentation and the demo from Dan and all the thoughtful replies in the Q&A portion. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And before we wrap up, we do have one more piece of business. It's the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card is James Pappas from Massachusetts. Congratulations, James. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Christina and Tony again for putting together a really informative presentation. I'd also like to thank Rubrik for making this event possible. And last but not least, I'd like to thank everybody here for attending and for all your great questions. So that concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.